Welcome to episode 1 of WeReview, brought to you by the Spin Reviewers Hangout. On this inaugural episode, we review the Stubby. Welcome to the first episode of WeReview. I am your host, Greg Gaub, and on this episode, we'll be reviewing the venerable Stubby from RME Tools, otherwise known as Rotablade. It's not their first spinner, but it is their most popular spinner. This is the Stubby. You've probably seen it. If you don't have it in your collection, you probably should. This is the bar version. They do make a try, but we're going to focus on the bar version. The one Stubby I have is made of brass. It weighs approximately 75 grams. Let's go ahead and show that off on screen. 74.5, 75 grams. The stainless steel version would weigh approximately 68 grams. The copper version would weigh approximately 79, 80 grams. The tungsten version would weigh approximately 169, 170 grams. And the titanium would come in at approximately 34 grams. Now, I did not take into account the nature of the bearing, but I assumed that both the buttons and the body would be of the same material. Lengthwise, the Stubby comes in at 50 millimeters. Similar spinners on the market that you might have or be familiar with probably would include the oyster and a little bit larger the clamshell. A lot of new collectors came into the collecting with the Ambler as a similar hourglass shaped spinner with a much wider body. Body comes in at 30 millimeters with a thickness at the buttons of 11.6 millimeters. So the Stubby has been around for a good long time. They're basically OG as far as the spinner market, right alongside Torque Bar and others that came into the market at that time a couple years ago. For me, the way that I spin, I usually just hold it in my hand and pull with my ring finger and balance it. I don't do a lot of flicking back and forth, but I will do a power forward spin, usually with locking my finger on it. And I'll do a two-handed spin as well and get it going nice and fast that way. It's a very comfortable spinner. No, hard or sharp edges. It's all very curvaceous. Both the profile, as you can see, has a nice swoop to it, and on the side you can get your fingers in there quite nicely. For the way I spin, it's just a great spinner. It's a good weight, it's a good size, it's a great feeling bearing, gives me the kind of feedback that I like through the bearing. The button, I appreciate the minimalist functionality of the button, though I do admit that it is on the plain side, especially relative to the design of the bar, the Stubby body itself. I generally keep the buttons that came on the spinner on my spinners, but if the manufacturer makes a new button, I'll go ahead and pick one of those up. So I look forward to seeing what they come up with for new buttons and new products in the future. Now let's see what everybody else thinks.
The Stubby. The spinner, the classic, the one that all other spinners are always compared to. Whether you're looking at a weight comparison, a size comparison, comparing the different elements of a design in different metals, whether it be tungsten, brass, copper, stainless steel, Damasteel, some plastic variant. This happens to be an injection molded one with some balls at the end, or titanium. At one point I owned more variants, but these are the ones that withstood the test of time, and these are the ones that are going to stay in my collection. This one is my favorite because it's Damasteel. Pretty much enough said there, but the main thing that I like about Damasteel, especially in the Stubby, is that there are so many curves in this design that allow you to appreciate the intricacies of the domisteel pattern. This is blue tone domisteel, and it just allows you to appreciate all the different feels and looks. I mean, look at that. It's you know, two-tone. It has the polished highs and the dark lows, and it's just such a nice metal. But back to the spinner. The spinner is one of the best of all time. One of the ones that has been around since the beginning. If you're like me, you like your Stubby with some proper buttons. Everybody seems to hate the Stubby buttons, and that's no exception when it comes to me, except for these ones, which came with the tungsten. They're custom engraved by Paul himself, and they just match the spinner, so I just kept it with it. But all the other ones, they all have different buttons on them, except for this one. This one I don't really spin that much, but that's besides the point. So back to this one. This is the stainless Stubby, and I've stonewashed it to where it just feels amazing. This is one of my top 10 spinners of all time, which I'll have to be doing a video on later this year. And it has the cocoon buttons on it. Some of you will recognize them. They just really complement the Stubby design so well. And I think Paul is going to be having some buttons like these in the works, similar to the look of the mini Rotastone that he just came out with, which has the kind of cuppy middle part with the lip on the outside. And I think that those will complement this design so much better than these ones. I don't know. These are just, they're so plain. Some people love them. A lot of people swap their buttons out, but there's just not much to love about them. They're just so basic in what they offer. They're flat. They have a lip, so there's a fair amount of grip. You don't have any gripe when it comes to feeling like it's gonna fall out of your hand, but there's just not much to love. I mean, when it comes to the Stubby, it's such a nice design, and this is just something that detracts from that aesthetic that it brings. It's such a premium looking spinner. I mean, whether you're looking at spinners in general or high-end spinners, it's a contender in all categories. I remember back when these spinners were very hard to get hold of. I mean, you had to wait until a drop. You had to hope you got in on one, and now it's so great to see that this spinner is so widely available to everyone. And it's a lot more affordable now than it used to be, except for when it comes to the exotic metals, which those are always going to be expensive though. But this is such a great spinner that belongs in everyone's collection, and that's the main thing that I wanted to get across in this video. It's one that I will always hold near and dear to my heart because, well, what's not to like about it? I mean, it's just beautiful.
What's going on, and welcome back. It's your boy Chris from the new spin era, and today I'm just going to be giving you my 2 cents on this guy right here, the Stubby from Rotablade. I didn't get this from the Rotablade website itself. I actually acquired this in a trade with none other than Greg Gobb, Mr. Brass himself. He had one in brass, and he also had it in copper. Copper isn't really his thing. It's my thing, Mr. Copper. And we made a trade. I had a few brass pieces that he wanted, so we made it happen. And I'm certainly glad that we did. Oddly enough, I actually acquired moving my mat here, the Tri-Stubby from another reviewer, Mr. Everything Spinning, Derek Jorgensen. And so when you trade, you kind of bring the whole spinner family together. Not oddly enough, I actually saw Mr. Gobb post a picture of his brass collection, and I saw a few of my pieces that I had traded him, and I was like, oh, I miss those guys. But life goes on, and I'm certainly not sad that I made that trade, and I'm sure that he's not sad either. Okay, so let's talk about how I feel about this guy. And while I do really, really like the Stubby, I feel like I don't feel as strongly about it, or my connection to it isn't as strong as some other people's. And that might be because I got it later on in the game. It had been out for quite some time. I guess the hype behind it had kind of died down. So I don't know if that maybe it plays into my feelings of it. But like I said, it is really nice. And to be perfectly honest with you, my favorite bar probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the Stubby. The Stubby kind of invented or made famous. I don't know if they were the first, but they were the first popular one, I guess you could say. I'm pretty sure they were the first bow tie shaped spinner. So without this guy, my favorite bar of all time probably wouldn't be, or it might have been something completely different. I don't know. But spin characteristics on this guy, very nice. You have that weighted outside, so spin feels very strong, very fast. Regardless of how hard you pull or flick, you feel like you're getting a really strong, really fast spin all the time, which I like. The judder on this for a bar, not that bad. It's actually pretty minimal considering, and that's because it's got those nice fat wide arms, which also allow for a nice purchase when pulling, so you can really grip it and rip it, as they like to say. And as far as finger huggers on bars go, this is probably as close as you're gonna get. It's very fidgetable, very nice. I do really like it, and it's one of those spinners that everybody needs to have in their collection. Needless to say, it's an OG, but I feel like you can't do a Stubby or talk about a Stubby and not at least mention it's most people's grails. And one that I thought I'd never own probably when I first started out collecting $20 Amazon spinners, and I thought $40 was too much for a spinner. So this seemed way out of my price range at that time. But like I said, luckily for me, trades happen, and I was able to acquire it. That's pretty much it. I want to leave it nice, short and sweet. I guess you could say 2 spinners that everybody needs to have in their collection. Until next time, you already know the deal. Live long and spin on.
Hey everyone, this is Aaron Carroll here to give you my quick 2-minute review on the Rotablade Stubby. Rotablade is a great company based in the UK and run by Paul Watson. It's a really high quality fidget spinner and something I think everyone should have in their collection. It's definitely a staple in the community and well known as a kind of a paragon of what a premium fidget spinner should be. It's got really good fidgetability to it and a really good gyroscopic feel. It doesn't have as much judder as most bars do, and I think that's due to its width. It's 50 millimeters long and it's 30 millimeters wide. It comes in at about 69 grams. It's a really good, what I would call Goldilocks weight, length, and width for a spinner. Buttons are a source of debate among enthusiasts. Some people love them. Some people like to swap them out and just don't prefer them. I personally really like the buttons, and I think it's a overall wonderful spinner. I think everyone should have one. The stock bearings they come with are absolutely fantastic and are well known for lasting for a very, very long time. The Stubby bearings are some of my favorite bearings, stock bearings that come in spinners. Period. I really like them quite a bit. The finish on this one is a machine finish, but the machining quality is so high that it's almost difficult to see that it is a machine finish. As you can see, those deep scooped sides are just beautiful. It almost looks like it's brushed, and the machining quality comes around into a nice curve. This is a spinner that really has a definitive aesthetic and shape without having any edges or any sharp points on it whatsoever. The customer service on them is fantastic. Rotablade is just absolutely great with customer service. The obtainability on them is amazing as well. They're very easy to obtain, and they come in probably more metals than any other spinner has ever come in. I don't think any enthusiast should have a collection without a Stubby in it. Everyone should have a Rotablade Stubby. It is a staple as far as the premium market goes. I highly recommend them, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, Paso YouTube. I am honored and obliged to add my 2 minutes to this video for the Stubby. And I don't have anything scripted or whatnot, but I'll just kind of give my 2 cents, my 2 minutes. This is a titanium bead blasted Stubby, and it's all but my EDC. You know, I've got a few spinners, and I would say this or the Thrax Nano are my 2 just kind of like do-all spinners. You know, take anywhere, spin anywhere, and just kind of with wild abandon. You know, I choose titanium because it's I'm an EDC guy first and foremost, and a spinner guy much after the fact. But the Stubby is excellent, and the titanium is, I don't own a Stubby in any other material. I have another titanium one, but I don't know. So far, I just really love the responsiveness of titanium. I have one other bronze spinner, an FTO here, and bronze is cool. I get it why people like the heaviness and stuff. It has a cool feeling, but honestly, all it does for me is solidify that I prefer titanium. I just like I said, the responsiveness and everything about it. The lightweight, anything that you could enjoy about titanium, I like it in a spinner also. So, the Stubby, you know, to me is super iconic. It is one of the originals, you know, I personally consider, you know, obviously Scam, Torque Bar to be the first one, and then Stubby and Zero Feud to be right neck and neck with being, you know, right in there with the originals. I chose the Stubby as my first spinner because I wanted to try something that I just knew was going to be, you know, premium. No gimmicky, no bullshit, no crazy lines or, you know, superfluous milling going on, just top-notch minimalism, you know, excellent machining. Unmatched balance, too. I mean, both of the Stubbies that I have are just absolutely perfect in like the way they spin, their balance, their just feel, the size. I mean, there's, even though, you know, I like tri-cocoons for my overall favorite, just all the things that make a spinner great, nothing outdoes the Stubby, in my opinion.
Hi, my name is Michael. This is going to be a quick review for the Rotablade Stubby. This is probably one of the revered bar spinner out there and a must-have for any spinner collector. Now, this is your standard stainless steel version. Quite nice. And interestingly enough, once you've picked it up for the first time, it's kind of in a small scale. It's probably the 18mm press fit buttons. But after you play with it, after a while, you get the hang of it, and there are a lot of variety of buttons out there available for this to swap out. Now with this Stubby, you got this really nice round edges here, really great for pulling, which I like to do. Then you got this shoulder here near the button, which is great for pushing. So overall, it's just a really nice, very well designed bar spinner. I like it a lot. The buttons again can be swapped out. Speaking of which, there is a couple of artists out there that made or even collab with Rotablade to make buttons or even the design. One of which is Harpohound. Now this is the alien design. I got the Makumi buttons right there, and Rotablade actually laser edge their Stubbies. Now this is the brass version. I think they complement well with each other right here. I also have the titanium version here, which I got specially anodized by Austin Miles to match the alien buttons that are kind of like rainbowed anodized. Quite nice. Now, depending on when you get them, there are some clearance sales, and if you're lucky enough, you can get this awesome Damasteel version right here with the matching buttons. Quite nice. And also, we have the tungsten version, although the buttons are stainless steel, but they are laser etched. Really awesome. This is hefty. This is about 134 grams. This is about 69. But overall, Rotablade offers a lot of metals, finishes, just overall a really great bar spinner. Hope you guys like that.
Hey guys, it's Gary from Speedy Tech, and I just wanted to give a quick update on my Stubby review. This one is in titanium, but I ditched the stock buttons for these mini Thrax because I can't really stand the stock Stubby buttons. They hurt my fingers when I rub against the side. Anyway, the Stubby is my oldest spinner, and I got it shortly after I started into EDC spinners at the end of 2016. Back then, the Stubby was one of the most elite spinners around, and it was super hard to get. I ended up waiting, I think, like 2 months in Rotablade's backlog, because even the ones on the secondary market that had a huge markup, they'd just vanish within minutes. But yeah, it's been 2 years with this titanium Stubby, and it's as gorgeous as ever. I hadn't really locked myself into being a try guy back then, but the combination of the Stubby's wide arms and this lighter titanium really helped keep that shifting judder down to a minimum. Still rocking the same R188 bearing it came with, believe it or not, and it's endured countless cleanings and lubrications, and it still sounds great, feels great, and it's definitely a unique bearing that, which is why I kind of wanted to keep it stock, and I'm glad I've been able to do that. I am a minimalist, so I can't really keep a massive collection without tons of anxiety. So the fact that I still have this same Stubby after all this time, it should speak volumes about the design. The rounded edges, the perfect finger-hugging waist, and that gorgeous machining all come together to provide such a pleasurable spin experience and an elegant place to put your cigar, which is actually how it's marketed. I still love it dearly, and I seek it out often, so if you haven't had the pleasure, I highly recommend it. Later.